Trish. Hello, Trish. So if you can make yourself available to your experience without trying to fix it, without trying to improve it, or without engaging in any way. Simply be the presence of awareness which you are. Recognize the transparency of being. You don't need to refer to yourself in any particular way. You don't need the past, the future. You don't need memory. You don't need any image, any story, any remembrance. To simply be. Being is effortless. It is the reality of consciousness, being, presence. It's the reality of your experience. And it's not being somebody or being better. Being isn't interested in seeking any experience. Being is not concerned about its image, whether it's loved or not loved. All of that is the process of thinking as a separate self. In being, meaning in presence, there is no boredom. It's the peace of being. Which is not a personal experience. Rather, it's the absence of separate personhood. As a person, there are always issues. There is the belief that I'm a mother, a father, a son, a daughter. That I'm a human body, mind form. And that belief creates the bubble of separation. And when that bubble of separation, that belief that I am male or female or somebody, when that is not investigated, it operates within your body-mind. And it's downhill from there. Worries and concerns. About my bubble, my body, my life, my tribe, my future, my family, my health. And then experience yourself as some separate reality. And you relate with others as separate. You overlook that both the cup as well as the plate are made out of the same clay. You believe yourself and perceive yourself and feel yourself to be a separate wave in the ocean, lonely wave in the ocean, separate from other waves, separate from the ocean. You don't even know about the ocean. You become concerned about the shape of your wave, what it looks like, what it feels like. While all along your true nature is water, like the true nature of the cup and the plate is clay. And this reality, this true nature is not a concept. It's the reality of being. It is what we refer to as being, what it refers to itself as I. Whenever you operate from ignorance, from the belief that you are a separate consciousness, your mind lacks clarity, and your behavior, your actions are harmful, hurtful, one way or the other, in the short run or in the long run. There is no peace in the sense of separation and perceiving others as separate consciousness from yourself. Perpetuates the unhappiness. You don't exist in time and space. You are not made out of a different reality than another. There is just one reality. There is only one reality, which you know as awareness, presence. That which we all have in common. That which we all are. So we take advantage of this life that's available to us to explore universal being and living as a universal being. Contemplating that the reality of self is universal. Contemplating that we all are that same reality. which is this transparent presence of awareness, consciousness. The formless, invisible reality, the infinite, invisible. We are all sitting at the same table. In the table of being. There are no borders to awareness. There is no birth and death to I with aware presence. And the belief that this aware presence depends on the body, or depends on the brain, or on the mind. It has no ground to stand on. This belief holds on to itself, it holds on for dear life to itself. It has no substance. I is neither male nor female. I is neither here nor there. I does not arise from the West and sets in the East. I does not awaken in the morning, goes to sleep in the evening. Take a look. So if you have any questions, anything that you would like to explore, please make sure you unmute yourself. And you're welcome to turn on your video if you care to. This way we can see each other. So any questions? Hello, Holger.
Hello, Magdi. It's not easy to find someone who understands this, but to me, when I read the Bible, to me, this Jesus person, this Jesus character, is a, for me a personification of our own awareness on its journey to rediscover again its own source. And it's so easy to get lost in religion and ideas and resistance and all of this. But does this make any sense?
Yes, it does. I think that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah. That Jesus' message is the message of truth, message about reality, about truth. It is beyond our personal stories, beliefs, our personal bubble of beliefs and feelings. And, through his words and his life, he was pointing to the one reality, which is the peace of being, which is our true nature, the creator of all creation, the reality of all creation, the real self, our true nature. The teacher appears among the people that they can look at him, relate to him or to her, and interact, interface, try to comprehend the message. The language of the teacher is appropriate for that era. And these metaphors used by the teacher are also, they're universal, but they're also particular to the times. And yes, Jesus was a truth lover, and he embodied the truth. He was pointing towards the oneness, the wholeness of being. I mean, all religions, they have at their core, the light of the wisdom of the teacher, which is not personal. It's and But then, of course, the flame that was passed on by the teacher, which is, of course, God's flame, the personal flame, to the friends, the disciples. Over time, it is diluted in some sort of religion or belief structure or ritualistic. But yes, if you look closely, you will find the same message, the universal message. Which is that there is one reality, and this reality is therefore not personal, it's universal. One reality, one truth, and that there is no other, there are no sub-realities to the one reality. And so whatever you consider yourself to be besides that one reality can only be a shadow, can only be some downstream echo, a gurgle of the stream. So when you consider yourself in reality, when you consider yourself, you're considering reality. You're considering everyone and everything. So it's okay to consider yourself to be a particular person, as long as you also consider yourself to be all particular persons and all particular things. Nothing excluded, you see. So yes, that's why the meaning of I am nothing and I am everything, it makes sense that nothing and everything are really one, in that in nothing, nothing is included or excluded, and in everything, nothing is included or excluded. Or one could say in nothing, everything is excluded except I, and in everything, everything is included as I. Either way, we are speaking about one reality. And from the uninvestigated belief that I refers to me, my feelings, my personal thoughts, from that uninvestigated belief that's what I is some separate thing made out of whatever, it's made out of mind or matter or both. When that's uninvestigated, then you don't really comprehend Jesus, the words of Jesus. They go right over your head. So you try to fit God in your own box of you will only get a caricature of truth. And the caricature of truth is not the truth. Any questions?
Hi, Magdi.
Hello, Rashmi.
Hi. Can I ask you about something Francis said?
Okay.
He said there's no ignorance in the present moment. Do you agree with that?
Ignorance refers to consciousness existing in time and space. The me, the body mind existing in time and space. I am this body mind, that I consciousness is this unfolding story or unfolding event, hopefully improving, hopefully getting better, hopefully getting richer, wiser, healthier, whatever. Ignorance is the overlooking of the eternity of consciousness. It's reality, it's infinity and eternity. So the present moment, in fact, is not a moment in time. From the perspective of time, the present moment is some infinitesimal moment between the past and the future. But what is how infinitesimal is this moment in time? If every moment the past is absolutely gone and the present has absolutely not appeared, not unfolded. So therefore this present moment must be non-existent as a moment in time, as a duration, let's say, of time, even a zero duration of time. It's non-existent. So the present moment refers to consciousness, to awareness, to the eternity of being, the eternity of consciousness. So in the
sorry, go ahead.
So in the present moment, there isn't a past, there isn't a me, there isn't a future a me, there isn't neither a past me nor future me, neither a past consciousness nor a future consciousness. So the ignorance is the belief and the feeling that I exist in the past, therefore that consciousness is unfolding in the past and in the future. That's one of the aspects of ignorance, is the sense of separation, which refers to perceiving oneself in some sort of form, as if form, whether it's a physical form like the body or a mind form like thoughts and sensations, or a combination of forms. gross or subtle forms. And in order to perceive yourself as form, there has to be some belief, meaning some thoughts and images and feelings, which in the present moment are completely absent.
So because the present moment is so like evanescent, it goes by so fast. Because I was thinking that if I'm here and I'm aware, then I understand how there's no ignorance. But if I'm here thinking I'm a separate person, but you don't mean present moment in that way, right?
The present moment is not a moment that goes fast. Its present moment, in fact, is eternal. It's the eternity of consciousness, the eternity of awareness, which never comes and goes, never is lesser or more, never is absent or more present or more absent. So we're not talking about something that goes very fast. We're talking about that which neither comes nor goes. But whenever you consider yourself to be the body-mind, the coming and going, then you mistakenly perceive the present moment as something that is moving very fast. Between two thoughts, there is no thought, right?
Right.
Now, one could say that thought A moves at a certain speed, thought B moves at another speed, let's say, as a way of speaking. What about the presence between thoughts? How fast is it moving?
It's always there, right?
Yes, it's there. And that same presence is there as thought A is galloping at a certain speed, and as well as when thought B is appearing at a snail pace. That same presence which is not moving. So time is a thought impression as well as an impression in the world. You have some young mountains like in Tibet, and you have some older mountains like in the Jura Mountains in France or Switzerland. both the time that appears as a mind impression, meaning thought, the thought of yesterday and the thought of tomorrow, images, as well as the time impression in the world, in the mountains, in the history of humanity. They're both appearances within the eternity of presence, of awareness, which eternity does not mean something that moves fast. It's that which does not move.
So where does ignorance exist then?
Well, it has the same existence as the existence of the mind and the existence of the world, meaning the belief, meaning the thoughts, the unexamined thought. Belief is a thought that has not, or a structure of thoughts or a series of thoughts that has not been looked into deeply. So the belief system that maintains that consciousness refers to a body or to a mind, and the belief and experience at the sensory level, at the perceptual level, that there is a world outside of consciousness, a physical reality outside of the reality of consciousness, and a body reality of a body outside of the reality of consciousness. And that there is a personal mind, meaning that there is an aspect to our the realm of our subtle experience, that is a personal realm to that, meaning that it constitutes it's just a limited mind, but it constitutes a separate consciousness. That's where the ignorance lies, both in the thinking, feeling, and perceiving from the unexamined point of view that there are multiple realities, that consciousness is dependent and limited and defined to whatever extent by body-mind experiences, by and limited to the mind, the personal mind.
But ignorance also exists within consciousness, because there is nothing outside consciousness, right?
You know, when the child goes with their father to the circus or to the amusement park, and the magician is cutting the lady in two with a saw.
Yeah.
And ignorance is not having the understanding that it's a game of mirrors. There is a play of mirrors that the father is aware of and explains it to the child. So there is no lady being cut in two. The magician is not cutting the lady in two. That's important to understand. So one could say that ignorance is a veil, over the mind is veiled, and so there isn't the understanding. About consciousness. There is a misunderstanding about consciousness. Where does ignorance exist? It exists with that thought that the magician is cutting the lady in half. It arises with the thought that I am this person. And of course, the feeling, oh my God, the feeling of me, the me feeling, the separate me feeling. So consciousness exists within that arising. So one could say, if you want to, that everything that appears within consciousness and out of consciousness and dissolves back into consciousness moment by moment. And ignorance would be the arising of the thought that I, consciousness, am a mortal body mind. So, does it arise out of consciousness? One could say that it arises out of consciousness, and is the I thought, the personal self thought arises out of consciousness. But there is no lady being cut in half.
Right.
And so the father is smiling. He's amused.
That's why, sorry, go ahead.
But maybe the child is not amused.
That's why it said all is well and unfolding as it should, because
Yes.
ignorance is just a mirage in the end.
Yes, that is said by many, but it's not necessarily fully comprehended by the many. What matters is that there is that deep comprehension.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Magdi. It's so much more clear now.
Okay.
I hope you don't mind that I asked you about it.
No, not at all. No. I mean, again, I mean, I just share what I share. In no way am I speaking on behalf of Francis or anybody. I have a deep love for Francis, and he speaks very clearly to his questions. I'm just speaking my own words.
That was really helpful. Thank you so much, Magdi.
Hi, Magdi.
Hello, Richard.
How are you?
Hey.
Good. You know, it had even crossed my mind to this notion, but then it just came up that you said that the words all is unfolding as it should are often spoken, but maybe not often understood. Is that what you said?
Yes.
I was just wondering if you could speak more to that. I don't really have a specific question. It's always very difficult for me to accept that things are unfolding as they should. And in an abstract way, I guess I can see maybe in some ways that could be the case. Mm-hmm. But I don't, yes. It's hard for me to accept that. Would you be able to speak to that a little bit?
Well, you know, the words, I think Robert Adams is reported, I'm sure many others have spoken these words, all is well and is unfolding as it should. This statement goes hand in hand with nothing is unfolding. So you know, the metaphor that, you know, the prodigal son has left his parents' castle, or that we have left the Garden of Eden. These metaphors, they are helpful in certain contexts, but it's also important to comprehend that it's not possible to leave the Garden of Eden. It's not possible to leave God's, your parents' castle, because the kingdom is yours, and the kingdom is everywhere. So in your dreams, you dream that you are a particular character, and that all sorts of things have happened to you and are happening to you, in your dream. You may have friends and family, sisters, brothers, whatever you have in your dream, and there are all sorts of things happening and have happened. And from that perspective, no, that's not true that all is well and everything's unfolding as it should. Everything is not well, and things aren't unfolding as they should. Because from the perspective of the dream character, there isn't the happiness. And yet, it is when the lion who's chasing you is about to catch you that you wake up. So when you wake up, then everything that was in your dream, that was the relationship with your, whoever you were dreaming of, you know, your boss, your past, your people who didn't like you, and people who, all the, everything in that moment is gone. It's completely 100% absolutely gone, because you realize, oh, yeah, I'm not that dream character. So how can we say that the lion chasing you is not instrumental to you waking up? And how can we say that anything that you have dreamt, anything that has unfolded in your dream, anything, the party that you had with your friends, you drank some good wine together, enjoyed each other, you swam in the lake, you traveled to Turkestan, you flew in an air balloon and over the moon. I mean, you know, how can I say that any aspect of my dream wasn't somehow all connected together until the lion came about to bite me and I woke up? We cannot say. We cannot say. We can choose to say, oh, no, the balloon, riding the balloon was okay, but having a party where my friends, you know, came over and they drank all the wine and didn't leave any for, they ate all the food. That was not okay. We can choose to say that, but when we take a closer look at everything that's unfolding, we find that, in fact, we cannot pick and choose anything out of it, because it's all interconnected. It's all somehow in a way that the mind cannot fully comprehend, but we have an intuition that's all interconnected. We cannot remove any part of it. Now, from the perspective of my identity, my personal identity, being a particular body-mind, when in ignorance I perceive myself, experience myself to be this character. And from that point of view, then I cannot say that everything is unfolding, is well and unfolding as it should, because from that point of view, I want to be loved. I want everybody to admire me. I want my family to be a great family that accepts me and loves me and wants my freedom and wants my joy and my personal growth. And I want my boss to think that I'm one of the greatest employees, etc. So from ignorance, from the confusion about presence, awareness, about my true nature, then I have a personal concern. I have my experiences of the personal experience. Everything is relating to me. Is it advancing my world, body, mind, my tribe, my whatever I identify with, my culture, my family? Is it okay? Is it good for the me, whichever way I define me, or bad for the me? And whichever way we define that. I mean, you know, some people like to be admired. Other people like to be left alone. Whichever way we define it, you see, it varies. So from that perspective, no, we cannot say everything is well, is unfolding as it should. But yet these words, everything is well and unfolding as it should, from the perspective for the mind that's in inquiry, in investigation, becomes curious about that, wants to understand, you know, wait a minute, what do you mean everything is well unfolding as it should? In fact, everything that is unfolding before we add on our judgment, or before we add on our download meaning the past, our past, how things should be. How do we know how things should be? We know how things should be because in our past we have created a whole set of data that is saying, well, now this is better, but it's better for whom? For me, there is behind it an assumption, a silent assumption that there is a separate self. Now, I agree, we all agree that it's nice to have a sweater when it's cold. It's nice to have an umbrella when it's raining. But that doesn't have a me in it. That's more sort of a practical thing, that we all share that intelligence about the survival of the body and, the comfort of the body, etc. But it's quite different from being defining ourselves via our past, our story, our images, how did we dance? What is the dance that we dance that gave us the biggest applause? You see, then we say, oh, that's how I need to dance. You see, the realm of intricacy of the thinking and the feeling that make up this me impression. From that perspective, living as that perspective, which veils the peace of being. Because as presence, it's beautiful because there isn't a concern. There isn't how I should be or how am I being perceived, or there isn't that as presence. Because as presence, there is no time. There is no past and future. There is no unhappiness. As presence, there is a peace of being. But as the bundle of, as our history and our sense of how we define ourselves via our history, it's a totally different game. And it's a complicated game of trying to make the pieces, trying to make the pieces fit. It's worse than the Rubik's cube. Imagine a Rubik's cube is, I don't know, 500 facets. You have to get 500 squares yellow, and it's that complicated. And maybe this is why we do it, because we are fascinated. we are fascinated with the cube aspect of experience of sense of separation. You see, yes.
And you I do have another question, but maybe two, because like you said, that it also it relates to the truth that really nothing is unfolding, right? That there's the appearance of activity and the appearance of the phenomenal world, but in a more fundamental way, that's not actually unfolding. Did I understand you correctly?
Well, another way of seeing it is that the reality of that which is unfolding is not that which is unfolding. Let me say it another way. The reality of that which unfolds thank you, Holger. The reality of that which unfolds is not something that unfolds or not unfolds. So consciousness is the reality of that which unfolds. So, but consciousness is not unfolding. So how do we reconcile those two things, so we don't want to say, no, nothing is unfolding, because it may lead to sort of, it doesn't clarify, it doesn't speak to the reality of consciousness. It's not complete. So the reality of that which unfolds is consciousness, like the reality of all your dreams. There is a reality to your dreams. It's not nothing. But the reality of your dreams is you, the dreamer. The reality of that which unfolds is consciousness. So, yes, I said it's important to understand that nothing is unfolding as a separate reality, as having its own reality. Maybe that's more clarifying. So, there is a better comprehension that is available to us about everything, all is well and everything is unfolding as it should. That better comprehension is in meeting our experience as consciousness. Rather than meeting our experience as a separate self with our past and our story and our history. There are 7 billion stories and histories. And within every one of these 7 billion stories and histories, there are 50,000 chapters. So multiply 50,000 by 7 billion, it will give you a little, it will blow your mind actually, about how complex, meeting our life from the sense of separation. So the better understanding you can get from all is well and unfolding as it should is by living as presence, living as consciousness, meaning to be the transparency, to be transparent to your experience, not to meet your experience with your judgments or your likes or dislikes or your beliefs, but explore meeting your experience openly. And I do not mean by that if somebody is standing on your feet to not speak. Makes perfect sense to speak and act when somebody is standing on your feet, on your foot. Like when somebody is somebody's acting in a way that is unacceptable. That does not exclude that, you see. But this internal resistance and this internal argumentation and this internal contracted way of being is common as a separate self. And so to notice and explore relaxing those tendencies. And if you can turn your attention to your body, you will find that in your body, there are various contractions. could be in your breath, in your throat, it could be even in your hands or in your feet. And it's very subtle, but it's fascinating to be sort of looking, sort of inviting yourself to notice in the body how there is a relationship, an echo within the body of your internal psyche, you see. And at the body level, it's really fascinating because you can play with it, you see. There's nothing at stake. Okay, so what if I relax? I mean, if I relax a certain sensation, it's not like there's something at stake, you know. And it's silent and internal. It's not something that you're doing something. It's not like you're doing something. It's more of a sort of like the waves coming over the sand, you know, internally, you know, sort of like that, washing the sand, you know. Because that has an effect much more pronounced than understanding, you know, that everything is interconnected and everything is unfolding as it should, and so on. In the dream, all the pieces are together. In some aspects of the dream, you cannot remove any aspects of the dream because it's, you know, there is it's a more profound understanding.
Yes, I just my limited experience. Yes, I have noticed that, and I mean, if you're in a stressful situation or a difficult situation, I mean, from something as simple as just, you know, keeping track of your breathing and making sure your breathing doesn't get out of hand, or even just, you know, if you want to make a stressful situation better, you're going to be better off doing that if you yourself are relaxed and not caught up in the stress of the situation.
Yes. You know, often, you know, when we are in relationships in particular, we're sort of present, but not fully, because we're sort of in our own inner, maybe a response or judgments or self-judgments or judging other, and that's also happening in the body. So you can notice it more in the body if you turn your attention to the body. And so there's like the question of, like, you know, hey, how about just exploring being present, exploring presence, you know, I mean, as an exploration, you know, of course, because we all have a lot of experience with being the me, you know, being, I agree or disagree. Oh yeah, that sounds like it resonates with my belief systems, etc. We all have experience with that. Fine. But now we're talking about how about experimenting and exploring, just being as presence, being.
You had spoken, I think it was Tuesday earlier this week, to Amna, and I'd heard the phrase "being not knowing" for quite a while. I never really grasped what it meant, but you were encouraging her to live in the being not knowing, and just to be in a situation. So it's simpler than I think had been making it out to be. But I had been, as you said, exploring that the past couple of days, just living in that way. It's just been very helpful, and
Great.
I mean, helpful in the sense of just I think understanding more of what we're talking about.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's great, Richard. Yeah. It's like noticing in the moment that, you know, that I'm, whatever resistances there are, you know, I mean, hey, can I just sort of, because the resistance always have to do with the past, you know, my ideas, and can I just be interested? To be interested, not just within my field of interest, to be interested a little broader than my field of interest, because we all have our field of interest.
Not just interested with the mind, to be interested in a more robust way.
Yes, and sort of to approach whatever is unfolding with interest, as an interest. Not, I don't mean like I have a personal interest in something, just an impersonal interest, you know, and it's general interest.
Thank you, Magdi.
Yes, Richard. Any questions?
Hi, my name's Tony.
Tony, hello, Tony.
How are you?
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for your pointers. They've been very impactful in my life. And talking about, if I may ask you, about oneness with the world around us. I guess it's with people and with physical objects. Is it you said something in one of your talks about when you look at something, it's like yourself is reflected back at you? Is that?
Yes, I mean, that's so.
Did I get that right? Or?
Yeah. You know, Tony, in our experience, like now, you know, like right now, our experience is intimate, meaning not like I'm intimate with you, I'm being intimate with, not in that sense. I'm talking about just our experience. When you look at your experience, there is a way of sort of noticing that there is an intimacy. I could even say intimacy within myself, but this intimacy within myself isn't excluding, isn't exclusive. And it's not something that I'm doing. I'm not like, wow, I want to get intimate with my experience. I don't mean that, you know. Mm-hmm. It's somehow, maybe because we haven't looked at it, but when we take a look at our experience, we find that, wow, you know, it's pretty intimate. My experience is an experience of intimacy, one could say. And intimacy, meaning like intimacy with everything, intimacy with the breath, intimacy with hearing, intimacy with sensing, intimacy with the light that's shining through the window, intimacy with the sensations within my, whatever, you know, intimacy even with the thoughts that arise for me. I may have a thought about politics in the world right now. Wow, that's an intimate thought. So in terms of, you know, our interaction with the world, there is a model which we're all familiar with, the model of like the world is out there and I'm here and I'm interacting with the world and hopefully I'm having good interaction and hopefully the world is good to me and I'm going to be good to the world, blah, blah, you know. It's a model. But, and I know this model very well, like all of us, we know this model. And I find that this model doesn't correspond to my experience. It corresponds to some thoughts I have about the world is out there and I'm here and I'm interacting with the world and I'm hoping this and that. But my experience, I don't experience a world outside of consciousness. My experience is that of consciousness, of awareness, whatever words, you know, of present. And I've never experienced a world outside of consciousness. And I'm not saying there isn't a world. Don't misunderstand. I'm not saying like there is no world, there is no mind, there is nothing. No, I'm just saying that I've never experienced a world outside of consciousness. So my experience is, yes, I experience a world as consciousness. or one could say within consciousness, but it's not like consciousness is a box and you put the world inside of it. That's what I'd rather say as consciousness. But within is okay too. We can say within consciousness. So as I keep returning to my experience, as opposed to my model of the world, I find that everything that I'm experiencing it as consciousness. Right now, this perception, this sensation, whatever, whichever way you want to dissect the experience, you want to say it's hearing, it's thinking, it's whatever, whichever way you want to dissect or categorize, let's say, the experience, it's all happening within consciousness, as consciousness. Consciousness seems to be the, I don't know, the umbrella. It seems to be, so that's from that perspective, I say, okay, my experience is that the world and I, meaning consciousness, because when I say I, and that's such an important point, Tony, whenever I say I, I'm not referring to my images of myself. I'm not referring to my story or my history, number of brothers I have. I'm not referring to something in the past. When I say I'm always referring to just this I now. And this I now, when I look at the I now, the thing that I don't find history. I have no problem with history. I have no problem with not trying to deny, that, I'm born in such a country and emigrated such an age and did this and that. No, but I'm talking about when I say I'm referring to what we all refer to as I. And I use the word awareness or presence, or I'm not referring to something that I'm seeing. I'm not referring to an image. I'm not referring to a name. I'm not referring to the body. I have no problem with the body, no problem with the image, but that's not what I'm referring to when I say I. So when I look at my experience, I always find I, and I find the world. So wow, it's like they're one, It's like, and here, like in a way, but in a way that's real. We're one. I mean, you and I, whatever that's you and whichever way we define you and I, we're one in my experience. Of course, I'm not saying that I know your thoughts or I know anything about your past, but in this experience, which is always this experience for me, it's an experience of oneness. So it is from that perspective that I say, yeah, there is oneness. It seems that oneness there is a reality to oneness. And also, there is a reality to my story, to your life, whatever, your life, your family, your friends, etc. is reality. But that reality, the way it's living itself, is as this oneness. Because I can never live the past, and I can never live the future. I'm not denying the past or whatever the future is going to be. No, but the way this past and future is living itself is as this oneness, as this nowness, or as this consciousness, as this presence.
The part that I get on, so may I ask?
No, yeah.
The part that I can see that I'm not the doer, and I can see that what I can't see is that we create. For some reason, with people, it's easier than with objects. Mm-hmm. And to say that we have created the objects are out of consciousness. Like, I understand that from the view of consciousness, we are all.
Yes.
But that's kind of a hard, I don't know.
I understand.
I know, listen, it's probably the biggie. It's one of the biggies, the hard, that like, how does awareness create, manifest, unless it's all just, it's not in the relative terms.
Well, let's look right now at our experience right now. So right now, you could say there is there is a computer, you know, there is an object. Pick an object, doesn't matter, you know, the room, the walls of this room, or your body, you know, just pick any object. So the way we experience an object, we don't experience an object in the past or in the future, although we did. But in terms of the directness of our experience is always now. So we're experiencing an object as now, as right now we're experiencing a table. So a table, for example, we experience it. We experience it. Where do we experience it? We don't. It's not my experience. I'm speaking for myself, but you know, so correct. You know, if something doesn't echo, let me know. I don't experience right now the table in my experience to be out there. I may perceive a thought that says the table is out there, but in terms of my experience of the table, all I know is I'm experiencing the table. So there is a table, and there is an experience of the table simultaneously. They're not like separate. So the table and the experience of the table are intermingled in a way. And this experience of the table, although it is an image, and there is a sensation and a sound, for example, when I bang on the table, although there are these aspects of there is also let me see how to do it. Okay, this is gonna do something. Okay, there is also the reality of awareness. In other words, I cannot right now take awareness, tell you, okay, Tony, you know, give me a minute. Let me put awareness on the side and have this conversation with you about the table. It's not possible.
Awareness, it is, yeah.
So awareness seems to be, and if I look at the table, then I look at the wall, then I look at the body, then I look at any object, I look at the oak tree in the yard. I find that one thing that I can never remove, that's always there, is awareness. So then I come to, I can say, okay, fine. So there are objects, there are billions of objects, and there is one awareness that seems to be always there, always there. I mean, the table comes and goes, and then it's the meal of pasta, and then it's riding the bicycle, then it's the oak tree in the yard. And so, yes, there is the world, there is the body, and it seems that consciousness is that which is always there and doesn't move. The oak tree grows, and then eventually dies, another oak tree comes to replace it, or an elm tree, whatever. But consciousness just is always there. Awareness is always there. So I come to the following, maybe conclusion, let's say, that there is the world, and the world is constantly changing. And there is consciousness awareness that is unchanging, changeless. And they don't seem to be two. They don't seem to be two. So sometimes I say, I use the language that the world arises out of awareness, but forget about it.
That's the hard part. Permeation is different than, like, I understand how awareness permeates.
Yes.
But it's difficult to understand how awareness manifests.
Yes.
That's where I'm.
Right. So then I look at, okay, so it seems that every moment there is a new experience of the world. Right now I close my eyes and I open my eyes, the screen, and then it's the same screen, but you moved your head, so it's slightly changed screen, and you know, so every moment, the world, the body is changing, and awareness is changeless. So it seems one could say, but again, it's linguistic here, Tony. I could say, as a model of language, that every moment there is a birth and death. as a way of speaking. There is the world arises and changes and dies and arises and dies, arises and dies. Because as you're changing your head, as my body is constantly changing, the bloodstream, the breath, etc., is moving. The oak tree in the yard, the wind is blowing, the leaves, it's changing. So we could say, and again, it's a concession to language, that every moment there is an arising and an appearing and a disappearing, appearing, disappearing, appearing, disappearing of what we refer to as the world, what we refer to as the body, what we refer to as the mind, even our thoughts. Now the question may arise, where does it arise from? That question, where does it arise from? Now, consider the following. Nothing can arise out of that which is not real, if there is such a thing as an arising, because that's a question, is where does it arise from? So we're assuming there is an arising. It's okay, we can have this conversation, why not? Arising, yeah. Nothing can arise out of an illusion. Nothing real can arise out of an illusion. Nothing real can arise of that which is unreal. By real, I mean that which is eternal, which does not come and go. And in our experience, there is one candidate for reality, which is awareness. So nothing, and there's one reality. There isn't like multiple realities. There isn't awareness A, awareness B, awareness C, one reality. So if we use the language of arising, then I would tend to say that whatever arises cannot arise out of another arising. It has to arise out of whatever it is that is real. So therefore, I come to the lingo that, okay, everything, whatever that is, if you want to call it the oak tree in the yard, if you want to look at, say the body, if you want to say the table, if you want to say the weather, whatever you choose, arises out of reality, out of awareness, cannot arise out of non-reality. So this is how I approach that question about how can we come to understand the phrase or the statement that whatever arises out of awareness. That's how I approach it, because of the reality of awareness. And there is nothing that can arise there is no thing that can arise out of something. It only arises out of reality. Things, quotes unquote things, arise out of reality. Now, I know that, for example, in classical Advaita, there is a big issue, or not a big issue, let me not say this. There are schools of diverging schools of thoughts about arising. Some Advaita school, the pure classical Advaitic school, says there is nothing that arises. And there are schools that says, well, whatever arises out of Brahman, out of that which does not arise, out of reality. For me, honestly, it doesn't matter much. What matters much more to me is to come to the comprehension about my true nature, about reality, about, when I say my true nature, I use the word reality because I'm not interested in any non-real true nature. So that's what really matters to me. And so I come to the reality of consciousness and experience. Whatever experience is, meaning the world, meaning the body, meaning the mind, is wonderful. Its reality is one, which is consciousness awareness. And when I look at consciousness awareness, then I come to this particular, come to awareness, this awareness. And I recognize it's your awareness and my awareness and Holger's awareness and Esther's and Amna's awareness. It's one awareness. Cannot be infinite minds, one awareness, one reality. And, you know, this understanding, the more we sort of really get this understanding, and it starts to permeate our life, how we're experiencing life and living life, there is the unfolding of the peace, the freedom, the joy, the happiness. Somehow the sense of lack or vulnerability, or something's going to happen to me. What am I missing? What am I lacking? All of that starts to sort of, like the waves come on the shore, they sort of wash it.
Mm. That's beautiful. That's very, I'm going to not think about it, but sit with it.
Yes,
I'm going to let it.
Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Tony. And also Holger has been posting the videos. Can you speak to that, Holger? You're posting it on YouTube?
On YouTube, on your YouTube channel.
I've been watching.
Oh, okay. So I just wanted to see. Okay, wonderful.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And just quickly, reality and God are interchangeable terms.
Yes, you know, I am very fond of the word God. Oh, thank you, Gisela. You know, Merry Christmas to you all.
Merry Christmas to all of you. Bye. Thank you.
Gisela, to you all. Yes, yes. But as I was saying, Holger, I am fond of the word God. I use the word God quite liberally. Yes, you know, God and universal consciousness is one reality. Somehow there is in the term God, in the word God, there is a certain love, a certain warmth, a certain tenderness that I feel. And in the past, I hesitated to use the word God because some of folks that were having difficulty with the term, but I think over time, there is now an understanding, you know, in what I'm sharing, that in terms of God as love, God as our true nature, the totality, the wholeness of it, of not as a subject and an object. Yes, they're interchangeable in my.
But reality, the word reality has the beauty of being immediate. So there is no waiting for a God to do something.
Yes.
So it's what's here and now.
Yes. You know, reality is, or truth is one, is absolute. There isn't, you can't mess around with reality or with truth. You can wiggle your way around that, you know. There isn't my reality and your reality. Yes, there is your mind, my mind, what you perceive, what I perceive, and so on. But reality is one. So that's, I would say that there are you know how they say the three pillars in Buddhism, but there is a core, and in my sharing, the core of the teaching is around reality, the reality of consciousness. Well, very lovely to be with you all. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and we'll be meeting again. I will put the schedule up. So very lovely to be with you. Enjoy, you know, whichever way, you know, things are unfolding right now. It's all very good. It's all well. All is well. Really.
Thank you, Magdi.
It's so then wonderful to see you all, and Esther and Tony. Lovely to be with you, Tony, and share with you those questions. And Holger, Zoe, hello, Zoe, hello, Zoe, and Gloriana. Lovely to see you, Gloriana. Very lovely.
Thank
you. Thank you
very
all.
much. Yeah. Happy Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Very beautiful. Yes.
Thank you.